Hello friends, Nayaswami Hriman here, and I'm speaking to you from just north of Seattle, Washington, for a weekly broadcast with an accompanying written article I like to share. This week I'm going to move on to a topic that, is just different. And I entitled the article, World War III, or Intentional Communities. Now, Paramahansa Yogananda did not mention his predictions of the future in his Autobiography of a Yogi, but he did speak of certain predictions publicly before his passing in 1952. Ananda's founder, Swami Kriyananda, was a young monk there with Yogananda at the time, and he spoke quite often over the many years before his passing in 2013 about some of the predictions Yogananda made. Now, predictions are, of course, a tricky business, even with saints, because intervening events can change the matrix of karma that can modify or even eliminate the predictions. Nonetheless, the world has been on the brink of a World War, World War III, a few times in my lifetime. I was born in 1950. I think of the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962 when we children hid under our desks as a practice drill. Nonetheless, in all my 73 years on this planet, in this body, I think never before until now have I seen the kind of sword rattling from so many different angles and countries, with countries very well armed, that seem to be akin or remind me of the sword rattling before World War I especially, but also World War II. And so those conditions have not really existed on such a widespread level, east and west, as it does now. But I partly bring this up because I'm rereading a book, Indian Summer, about the freedom of India. And the point I want to make is how ironic it is when I read this story, how Mahatma Gandhi, who of course is praised for leading a nonviolent revolution against the British, and yet, much to his great dismay and sadness and really tragedy, was the level of communal violence that attended that independence with the partition of India between Pakistan and India. But what I'm rereading is the hint or the statements that Mahatma Gandhi's own tendency to be both stubborn but also extreme in his views, yes, extreme in terms of spiritual precepts, but without compromise and so on, had its own impact on leading to the kind of factionalism that resulted in the partition and in the mass slaughter that took place. I'm not here to blame Gandhi or anything, I'm just reading this book, but what it reminds me of is, along with everything else happening, is a similar level of stubbornness and extremism, unwillingness to compromise, whether seen in government and the United States Congress, or different nations moving to the right and into hardened positions of nationalism, or with religionists as well. Left and right, if you'll pardon a bad pun, I see this same trend towards extremism and stubbornness and an unwillingness to respect, discuss, and compromise. America already has a horrible tradition of gun violence, and if you look at our entertainment industry, it's just loaded with violence and so on. So I cannot but have the impression that we are on the brink of World War III. I've often thought of what would it be like to have lived as a Jew in Germany or Czechoslovakia, Poland, etc. During the 1930s. Everyone saw what was going on, but very few heeded either heeded or even could move away. And I wonder if we're a little bit like that. My generation, post-World War II, has lived in what I consider a bubble of relative peace and prosperity and safety, at least here in America. And I think we've been lulled into complacency. But my real point isn't necessarily just the not very happy one of World War III being imminent at some point, but I think that it will be a incentive, even a necessity, for what Yogananda also predicted would be the spread like wildfire, he said, of a movement towards establishing intentional communities. I think that'll go along with a movement away from cities, but that's sort of a different topic and will probably vary from city to city, etc., country to country. But the establishment of intentional communities where people of like mind and high ideals can lead sustainable lifestyles, it just seems so obvious to me. I've lived in such communities practically all my adult life, but I never saw until recent years the possibility of their spread like wildfire. It may not actually happen in my life, but I don't think it's very far off. I think, as usual, necessity is the mother of invention in change in human behavior. And I think war, violence, disease, we've seen the pandemic, which gave a nudge to community living. I think these will be the things that will make his prediction for communities actually take place, with or without World War III, although I just cannot imagine that it won't happen. There are too many big players spread throughout the world who are frankly eager to press the big red button. Nothing to fear. The only way out is in. Whether you move somewhere, you might think it's safe, but there's no place safe on this earth, really. And you have to die anyway, pardon me. So the real safety is an inner experience of our higher self that's eternal, changeless, forever free from harm, and finding others of like mind to share that journey, the practice that leads to that state of consciousness. This is really what's trying to happen beneath all of this, to awaken us to something far higher, something far more satisfying, something real and present today, here and now in your life, that can withstand the crash of breaking worlds. Okay, great friends, fear not, go within.